So we were fortunate enough in 2009, we had a judge here in town, and what had happened was the Supreme Court had been sort of hearing about bridges, what's happening, how it's affected, the court systems. And so we had a local judge who had gone to a training offered by the Supreme Court. She came back and said, "Man, that was eye-opening. I understand now maybe why I'm seeing the same people across from the bench. They go, maybe they commit the crime, do the time, if you will, and then they come back out and they're doing the same things." And so for her, it was that difference in language, sort of what our institutions really depend on versus what sometimes we get by those people coming into our agencies, institutions, and things like that. So for her, she sort of convened a group, talked about what she had learned. I think at that time we did maybe a half-day bridges training. We also did a poverty simulation, and the poverty simulation featured, I shouldn't say featured, it's through the Mid-Ohio Benefit Bank, and we had about 200 community leaders go through the simulation, and not one of them could survive a day in poverty. And so for us in this community, we said, gosh, how many people are we serving that are maybe walking through some of these obstacles? And we have to have a deeper conversation. So from there, I mean, literally, it was the judge, her magistrate, and I think 2 volunteers at the time who said, we need to do more with this bridges work. So I think we jumped in at that point. Marion Matters hadn't even formed yet, jumped in with both feet and said, we need to offer Getting Ahead. So those 4 people really started that first Getting Ahead class. Now, obviously from there, we've grown, but those were our humble beginnings. We weren't even an organization yet. We were volunteers who really believed in the work. And then after time, after that first class, I think what had happened there was that the support that was needed afterwards, the 4 people who jumped in with both feet said, it's going to take more than the 4 of us to really help support this movement, 1, and 2, the people who go through the program. It's a lot that they gain from Getting Ahead. Now what do you do with it? How do you maneuver this new world that you're learning about? And so from there, we started building a volunteer base. And then I think, so that was in 2009, 2010 when those things were going on. In 2011, we became Marion Matters, and then in 2012, we became a nonprofit. So at that point, we could start, writing grants and looking for funding to fund all the things that we wanted to do. And so at that time, I wasn't here yet. I didn't come on board until 2013. And, from there, I started facilitating Getting Ahead. I got certified in that, also in Bridges Out of Poverty. And then obviously after going to different conferences various times, there's different things that you pick up from there and you say, gosh, let's bring that back to our community and see what we can do. And so, from there, we have really just built off from all those beginnings. So Getting Ahead is always our core. It's always where we start, but we've then been able to add financial literacy. We've built partnerships with tons of area agencies, community college, government agencies as well, to really sort of, it's not necessarily a pipeline, but that's just the word that I'm thinking of. It's to help people sort of get to that successful outcome a little more smoothly. So again, we know, right, from understanding the different mental models, sometimes a barrier or a little speed bump in the road turns into, a train wreck at some point. And so how do we sort of stop that from happening? What are those support systems so then the wheels don't completely fall off? We can do what we need to do to get back on track. And so this community has worked really well, collaborating, building partnerships, and really taking more of a holistic approach, I think, at everything that we're doing. Right now we talk about diversity a lot. And I think one thing that gets missed when we talk about diversity is the difference of economic class. And instability is such a form of diversity. And if we're not preparing for that, whether it be in our schools, our businesses, we're really, we're missing out on some educational components that could really help us, thrive, and also not make people feel like, well, gosh, we just need another warm body. But, we offer those support components that make them feel like they're supported in their work as well. So the thing that I think is most noticeable is the transformation from day 1 of Getting Ahead to the last day. And I'm talking about just the way people sit, the way they present themselves. And we've been told, to people who refer folks to us for Getting Ahead, when I was at that graduation, I didn't realize that was the person. They looked completely different. So that hope, that self-confidence, that's the first thing that we notice. Now, obviously, when you build on those things, the things that people are able to do are incredible. So, I mean, we have so many successful stories, but I'll share one that I love specifically. We had a person, when they joined us for Getting Ahead, they had been doing childcare at home. And it wasn't certified childcare. It was more like babysitting close friends, family. And when they were 18, they had worked at a retail place here in town, and they witnessed a coworker shoplifting. They didn't report it. And then someone said, oh, well, so-and-so saw them do it, right? So this person now has something on their record. They didn't commit the act, but they also didn't report the act. And so she said, you know, I don't want to babysit. That's not what I want to do, but because of my record, I can't do anything else. And so the cool part with what we do with Getting Ahead, we have those ally pairs, so those people that come alongside and really sort of help people maneuver. Well, she was paired with someone in the community who worked for a nonprofit here that we happen to have a relationship with. And this person said, well, we're hiring for a position. I think you'd be great at it. She explained her story, and the person said, I think you should apply anyway. So the reason why I'm sharing this story is because there's two things that I want people to pick up on this. One, she knew that she didn't have the qualifications or may not do it. Her ally said do it anyways. So there's that encouragement from another person. So she went to the interview. She interviewed fantastically. The agency actually called me and said, we really want to hire this person. They interviewed so well, we think they would be a perfect fit, but because of their record, our policies would prohibit us from hiring the person. But because we have a relationship with you, because we understand how Bridges works, we want to help her get her record expunged so we can hire her. So this agency helped her navigate the legal system so that she could get her record expunged. She was then hired, and she worked there probably, I would say, 8 to 10 months, really sort of building her skill. And then what she would consider her dream job became available, and she applied for that, and she got that job. And so she went from babysitting at home to her dream job, which was in the food industry. She worked for a school system. She was head of nutrition. And she managed 6 people. She had benefits for the first time in her life. She had gone through financial literacy, so she was trying to save some money back. She also wanted to go back to college. She ended up going back to college, graduating, again, had this dream job of hers, and she's traveling to Las Vegas to food shows and learning, you know, that skill set. And then also, you know, she was able to buy a car for the very first time. So, I mean, that is transformational. And that's what I like about the work that we do. It's not transactional. Here's this, if you do this, you'll be better. It's totally, you know, starts from building that confidence to really helping people understand what their potential really is and then going after that. And that's what I love about the work. It's transformational. And so when you can do Bridges well in your community, great things happen, because had we not had that relationship with that other agency, I don't know that we would have this story to share. But because they understood what we were doing, they were able to step up. Now, they didn't lower an expectation. They didn't do anything, you know, that they wouldn't have done for someone else had they, you know, known the situation. But when you do it well and you build those relationships across agencies, you really start to see your community move in a different direction. So Bridges Out of Poverty is my first passion. I mean, I had learned about Bridges in 2013. I didn't know anything about it before. I had interviewed for this position to become the executive director. And so from there, obviously, working with people, that is my passion. I love to work with people. So being able to facilitate Getting Ahead is something that I enjoy. Obviously now I've built a team, and I don't get to do that as often as I used to, but it is something that I enjoy, and I would do that all the time if I could, because I love it so much. But for us, in 2014, I was at the Nashville conference, the Addressing the Challenges of Poverty Society conference in Nashville, and I learned about Employer Resource Network, or ERN. And at that time, I brought the idea, the concept back to Marion, and Marion wasn't ready for ERN yet. And so we'd kind of put in a couple of years' work, and in 2016, there was a grant available at the state level called a Healthier Buckeye Grant. And so that gave us the ability to start our ERN here in Marion. And so from there, we partnered with United Way to sort of write that grant and really get those instrumental pieces of getting our coach hired, talking to those businesses. And then from there, the workplace stability sort of lined up with everything that we were doing, helping the employers now who are business members of the ERN to really understand their workforce. And so for me, it wasn't just enough. I mean, Bridges Out of Poverty is fantastic for our community, but sometimes in business it's hard to translate. How does this apply to what we're doing? What does this look like to my bottom line? So workplace stability gives us the ability to really show that what's happening within your workforce is affected by those mental models that we learn about, and this is what it does to your bottom line. So for me, it was just a natural progression to move, once we started that ERN, to talk about what are some other benefits that we, that are offered to us through AHA process. How can we pull some of those components in to really help make the business well-rounded? So it's not enough just to educate your employees, but then your management teams as well need to understand what their role is in the workplace and with those that are working for them. So with the Employer Resource Network, or ERN, one of the biggest component is the success coach piece. So a success coach is really a shared resource that businesses within a network pay for time. So the coach then gets to come on site and work the employees through barriers. And so for us, a coach is really that direct conduit to resources within the community. That would be the short definition of a coach. Great. For me, I mean, like I said, I worked in the for-profit business for many years, and had coaches been around then, I think our businesses that I had worked in would have shaped up in a different way, just because this is what I want people to understand about the coach's position. The coach isn't a counselor, but the coach is a connector. So they're a direct conduit to the community. Now me, Heidi, working in HR at a for-profit business, I don't have all those connections. And it's not that as an HR person, I don't want to help someone before me, but I have a lot of things that I'm responsible for in that HR role. And while I do have relationships with employees, sometimes I'm bound by policy and procedure on what I can help with. And so that coach really comes alongside and really is a great companion to the HR teams, our management teams, just in the simple fact that, one, they have time allotted to work with those employees just past that initial, I have an issue. And then two, they are a confidential resource. So I think there's only so much Heidi in HR is going to hear from the employee without them. Fear of maybe, I might lose my job because I'm sharing this situation that isn't pleasant, right? And this may affect me in the job if I tell too much to HR Heidi. Now, the coach then can hear a little bit more and say, you know what we talk about here is between us. My role as a coach is to help you sort of maneuver through some of the things that you're dealing with, connect you to resources, because ultimately I want you to stay working, that sort of thing. So the role of the coach is just crucial. And the more the coach is embedded within the business, the more successful the ERN is going to be to that business. So we're not talking about, gosh, it's your third write-up, maybe you should go talk to the coach. We start early on with that first write-up. I mean, heck, our coach is embedded at the orientation process. So coach is there making herself known. People understand what her role is within the business. They understand where to find her, what days she's there. And then they can start making that connection right away. And so I think the sooner the coach is introduced, the better it is for the business, just for the simple fact of if I've got an employee within that 90-day time frame that's got an issue and the coach is embedded in the process, they're able to walk that employee through that before it even gets to a write-up, second write-up, third write-up, and then we need that magic wand to fix it, right? So.